Hi, my name is Narasha, and today I will be talking about how I integrated technology such as hardware, software, and online sites into a project of making a thriller opening film, which is called Bloodline. There will be 3 videos exploring each type of technology, and in this video, we will be starting off with hardware. The first equipment is the cameras. We use 2 types of cameras in this project, and those are the Fujifilm X-S10 and the Fujifilm X-S20. By using these 2 different types of cameras, the quality is not the same because the Fujifilm X-S20 provided a clearer shot than the X-S10, which it can be clearly seen in the different scenes we shot in the opening. The lens we use is the 35mm lens, which worked really well for our film, since our school only provides the 35mm ones and another type of lens, but that type of lens is very zoomed in, and it would have been better for our opening if there were lenses that are wider, since our opening include a lot of mid shots and long shots, as it showcases the setting and body language of our characters, which is very essential to our thriller opening. The settings of the camera is also really important. Since these cameras are shared by multiple year groups who take media studies in our school, so our camera settings would not be the same every single time. We also had to change the settings depending on the location and time of the day we were filming. For example, the chasing scene or other indoor scenes would be much darker, so we had to lower the aperture. We also had to use higher ISO so that our actor's face and features can be brightened. In the chase scene, since it was really dark, we used these settings to be able to still see the protagonist's facial expressions, which are crucial to these types of scenes, since it will communicate to the audience the emotions which will make them more engaged. The lighting has to be dark, which would link to thriller horror genre. But other than the settings change, we also use flashlights to give a natural glow to his face. On the other hand, for outdoor locations, we make sure the aperture is higher and the ISO is also lower, since it is very bright outside, and we still want to make sure the main character facial features are still shown in the brightness, as well as the surroundings. This can be shown when we are shooting the walking scenes at school. It is very bright outside, but since we changed these settings, it provides a more cinematic image to the film. The X-S10 and X-S20 are also not hard to use because it provides very good quality and easy to understand settings. I also had many experiences with filming in the past from my year 10 to 12 projects, including the preliminary project we did before this opening. All these opportunities really made me improve in my skills of cinematography, as well as the multiple practice shoots we had before shooting the harder scenes in this thriller opening project. Although even with experiences, one thing I learned is whenever it is filming day, there will always be problems and obstacles that will appear unexpectedly. And there were some problems with the camera because it keeps heating up in some scenes as we are outside for far too long and the temperature is hot. The cameras would also shut down, so we had to plan out the scenes before we filmed so we could give the camera a rest. One of the cameras also had a broken screen, and I had to shoot a hard walking scene with the gimbal that day, so it was very stressful to execute and I had to reshoot it multiple times, but I think it turned out really well. The next equipment is the gimbal. This equipment, I would say, is the most difficult and frustrating piece of equipment I had to work with. This project was the first time we were using it, and other groups had used it before in their preliminary project. But for our project, we didn't require it. But we needed the gimbal for this thriller opening project because it would help us stabilize our shots, and so I used the gimbal to film in every scene. Our project is also a horror thriller genre, which has a lot of chase scenes and action scenes, so we use the gimbal to make sure the outcome of the shots are cinematic. Although in one of the POV shots in the chase scenes, we decided to shoot it handheld to give it a more cinematic and shaky image to mirror the image the protagonist must be seeing through his eyes when he's being chased. The gimbal also was a very helpful equipment when creating the pull-out shots, since it required intense focus on making the scene stabilized, and by using the gimbal, we were able to achieve the perfect shot. Otherwise, if we filmed it handheld, the outcome wouldn't have come out as good as we wanted it to be. For the gimbal practice, we had one training session, where I had to quickly learn how to establish the gimbal properly, and this was taught on the day we were filming. And at first, it was very hard to ensure everything was balanced, and it was hard to set up. But throughout the whole production process, there were many times where I had to assemble and then disassemble quickly, so I got better at mastering the gimbal. There were also issues of the gimbal constantly going to sleep and shutting down, so we emailed our teacher to ask for advice, and we found out that it wasn't properly balanced. But as we were further into the filming process and I got more experience with the gimbal, we saw less of the gimbal going to sleep. The gimbal itself is quite heavy, and at first I was not used to carrying such weight, but as I continued filming in the project, I became very used to it, and there were many scenes where I had to carry the gimbal while walking backwards or running backwards in the chase scenes, which was very difficult to accomplish, but I am very happy with the outcome. However, overall, the use of the gimbal is necessary, but it is also very hard to work with, since all this time setting up makes us lose a lot of filming time. These are some pictures of our teacher teaching me how to use the gimbal, and honestly, like I said, it took one lesson because we had no time to properly learn about it, but with the small lesson time, I think we managed okay. There were moments where we had to ask our teachers for help, like I said, with the gimbal during the first filming session, but after that, we had no more problems as I was able to properly assemble and disassemble it every time, as well as I also helped other groups to assemble and disassemble the gimbal as well. The next equipment is the SD card, which was used for the camera and the handy recorder, so we mostly have to bring 2 or 3 for the shoots. One for just in case we lost the SD card, which this incident has happened before, and it was shown in our question 3 evaluation, where we filmed a reality TV show regarding how we improved our production process. It was a real incident where one of our members lost the SD card, and we found out right before we were about to start filming. The struggles of finding the SD card made us shoot really late into the night. However, we solved this solution by ordering one from Grab, and it was the best possible solution in that moment. But when we got home, our member found the SD card in his bag, and it was a big lesson for us, and ever since we made sure not to forget any equipment and made sure we had everything ready when we were gonna film. These SD cards are used to store files of the video recordings and audio recordings, so it was very useful. We also used iPhone to take behind the scene pictures and videos, which is very important to us to put in our production and planning steps. We also use AirDrop to share videos easily, which was very helpful and beneficial. For the iPad, we used it to look at our storyboards or notes of the scenes when we are filming, and Get also used his iPad to use Procreate to draw our storyboards and floorboards. Next is the MacBook. It was a very helpful tool because Get used it to edit our film, and we also used it to access our websites and make Canva slides. I also used my laptop to edit our reality TV show for one of our evaluation questions, as well as edit and tune sound, which was one of our soundtracks for the film. Although we didn't really include it into our film itself, it was a very good experience to play with the pitch, reverb, and distortion. We also used the MacBook to upload our films and vlogs onto YouTube. And we also use it to write docs and script, as well as some of our scene plannings. For sound, we use 3 pieces of equipment, and the first one is the Zoom H6 handy recorder, which we use to record dialogue, some Foley such as screaming and knocking doors. It is important since it would make our film sound better and feel more realistic and immersive for the audiences. Some issues we faced with the handy recorder was that the battery ran out pretty quickly, which this has occurred before. And so we had to record the actual cinematography and the sound separately. The handy recorder was also a very delicate piece of equipment, and we had to find the right moments and places to use it. For example, the scene at school had many background noises, and so we had to lower the settings to not have noisy background sounds. But eventually we got the hang of it as we used it really often. We had around 2 training sessions for it, and we trained by practice making Foley with vegetable crunches, which made sound similar to bone crushing. However, we didn't use any of these techniques in our film because we didn't require any bone crushing Foley for our thriller opening. The handy recorder also came with the Rode boom pole and the Rode shotgun mic. The boom pole was hard to use since it was heavy, especially since we had multiple shooting locations, so we had to travel with it a lot. That helps us hide the mic from the camera frame since the boom pole is really long, so we can extend it to put above our actor, and we could follow him around with the mic without being seen. And these are some pictures of us using the sound equipments. Next is the light equipments. For the light equipments, we had 3. And firstly, this is the Amaran 200XS bi-colored LED lights, which this was the main studio light that we used, and it came with a pole stand and it was provided by the school. These lights helped when we were shooting in dark locations such as the chase scenes in the beginning of the opening thriller, and we used it to brighten up the place a bit so that the surroundings can be seen as well as our actors' movements and facial expressions in the dark. This Amaran 200XS bi-colored LED lights was used in one of the scenes where we planned to showcase the shadows of a woman who's potentially the person our actor is running away from in that first scene. And we used warm tones to showcase her shadow on the wall. However, that scene did not work out like we wanted in our heads, so we scratched that scene instead. On our first filming lesson, we made a huge mistake of forgetting the Amaran 200XS bi-colored LED lights. So we ordered this 20-inch studio lights from Grab, and it arrived pretty fast. It worked similarly to the school light. If we didn't discover this gem, we wouldn't have been able to film on schedule. The light box that is shown here, we didn't actually use it in our filming process, but we used it when we were doing our practice and training sessions for the lights. Here is a picture of us setting up for practice training lights at school, and this other picture is when we set up the lights at the shooting location. This is all for the hardware part of the video. Please go on to look at the next video for the software technology that we used. Thank you!